Welcome, Alistair Logan.
Thank you. Darren.
Writer?
Sure.
Actor?
I do that.
Host?
Sure, I suppose.
Husband? Father? Language trainer?
I do. Yes, all of those things. Yes.
Is there anything else on that list I could have perhaps added?
I don't know. I don't know. That's sort of covers it, I suppose.
Are you sure?
I don't know about the host. I don't know whether I host anything.
Okay.
I suppose I host. I don't know. I suppose it's like the travel shows. That's hosting. Is that what you mean?
I guess it was, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, then that's fine. Yeah.
Now,
presenting...
From your LinkedIn profile, it says host.
I don't really do that.
Yeah. Well, no, I thought I'd bring it up because actually when I went into I attempted a deep dive on Alistair Logan online, and there's not a huge amount of avenues that I can follow.
Yeah.
Apart from specific links where you're actually doing something.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm sure if I were in the world of looking for one of you and I was a headhunter, I could probably find you in the right places, but I was just doing a general search.
Yeah.
And so, of course, LinkedIn is, it ranks very highly on Google. So I followed it, and you haven't been there for some time, it seems, because actually, and I'd like to talk a bit about that hosting thing, even though you claim not to be a host, because there was a really interesting episode of I think it was a pilot episode or a first episode of a show where you were traveling the Finnish archipelago. Okay. And being as we're in Finland and we're both immigrants who have moved to Finland, at some point I'd like to get onto that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But your main work is as a writer, am I correct?
Currently, yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I've written a couple of school textbooks for both the lower level and upper level in Finland. One is called Far and Beyond, and that's for Swedish-speaking schools in Finland. And that's the upper level, and then the other one is called Skylight for Ottawa, and that is for the lower level, so from grades 1 to 6. It's also in Swedish-speaking schools, so there is a potential, unfortunately, if you are a Swedish-speaking child in Finland, to have a book written by me from grades 1 to grade
Is that written in
9.
So that's written in Finnish?
They are English textbooks. So obviously they're written in, the
students.
exercises, and there's a whole group, and they're for Finnish students.
Yeah. So you've written this completely, but was the curriculum...
As a team, yeah.
Okay, right. You're part of a team. And so English, you're not an English teacher, but you've studied, obviously, English.
I have, yeah. So I mean, my sort of part in it is kind of, I suppose, well, it's many things. It's kind of the creative force, I suppose, creating the characters and creating the world of the books. In the upper level book, I wrote The Reader, which is a 100-page novel that runs from grades 7 to 9. So that's sort of extracurricular reading and these kind of things. So that's basically, as well as I do the exercises and some of the other things that contribute to all sorts of different material, as well as checking the English from the Finnish teachers as well. In the initial stages, obviously there's a proofreader in these kind of things later before it goes to print.
I mean, of course, I guess for anyone listening, it's probably like, what are you talking about? Or why are you talking about it? So maybe I should mention why I asked you to come on the show.
Okay.
Actually, we met, I believe, on a TV series here in Finland called Aranta, which is like beach bar.
Yep.
Right? And it was a spin-off from the most popular daily drama soap opera here, which is called Salatutelemat, Secret Lives.
Yeah.
And we met, and I think you'd done maybe some digging on me because you knew I'd been to East 15, which is the acting school that I trained at. Yeah. So you kind of already knew that. I was like, oh, how'd you know that? Okay. And so it turns out you'd also studied at East 15.
I did, yeah.
But not as an actor, as a screenwriter and director.
No, I studied as 2 years of acting and then 1 year as a director, a theatre director.
Okay, but you studied screenwriting separately.
Yeah, I studied the MA in screenwriting at Tomk in Tampere.
Okay, right. So excuse me for again.
No, God, no.
Finding this stuff online. We should out from this episode. We should build your bio and replace that on your LinkedIn because I think this is useful stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where we met, and we had a scene together where we were playing a couple, right? And
we were.
At an awkward dinner party where one person thinks they might be gay, and they were looking at us, wondering, oh, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Anyway, I believe that was the purpose of the scene. You can see it on my show reel if you wanna check it out. And I invited you here today because as an immigrant yourself, you've been here for some years in Finland. You know what it's like to traverse the landscape for some time, and you've had time to bed in. Are you also married to a Finnish?
Yeah, well, I was the original. We did the original woman. No,
Eve.
My first sort of contact. I met my ex-wife at East 15. She was also going to East 15 as well. Sort of similar, I think, similar to you. And then so we kind of were working in London, and then a few opportunities came in Turku, and so I lived in Turku and worked as a director and an actor and a writer in Turku, primarily at Linneteatteri.
For those who don't know, Turku is a city on the west side, southern west end of Finland, and it used to be the capital many years ago before Helsinki.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
it's quite, it's sort of a beautiful place. But and then I sort of I got divorced, and then I moved to Helsinki, and now I'm with my current partner.
How long were you there for in Turku?
15, 16 years, something like that.
So you moved there in
2000 and maybe not that long. I moved permanently to Finland in about 2003 or 2004. So I've been here a long time.
Okay, but you're not originally from Finland. You're from...
No, I'm from Canada originally, but my parents are both from the north of England, and my sister was born in England. So when my parents split up, when I was quite small, my mother moved back to the UK, so I would spend summers and Christmases in Hexham or near around Newcastle. And then I lived in Calgary with my dad and went to school there. So it was quite,
because you have quite an interesting accent. It's hard to place, actually. I wouldn't say Canada, but it's got that mid-Atlantic.
I'm stuck on an island in the mid-Atlantic. Yeah, this is the general vibe.
It basically is. Yeah, it's like most people might guess American, right? So, parents, young age, divorced.
So I'm the youngest.
This is very interesting. Youngest, you say?
Yeah. So, and I'm the youngest by about 8 years. So yeah, they sort of, my parents kind of got back together, and then had me, and then they split up. So they were sort of trying it again, I suppose. I don't know the dark secret history of my family.
How old were you when they actually broke up?
I don't really know.
Young enough to know.
Yeah, I think I must have been about 6, 7, 8. Okay. There was a period of separation. So, and my father worked quite a lot in. Traveled a lot, so it's difficult to pinpoint exactly when the breakup occurred. I just, my mother and I just started living together in a separate town, and my sisters were at university, my brothers were at boarding school.
It's really interesting that you were born as the youngest, and you have siblings who are... There's a big gap between you.
Yeah.
Because my first 2 guests on this podcast are exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
Last week I had a fellow Canadian, born in Canada, Andrew Shakur. I'm not saying his name correctly. And he was a French Canadian. Grew up. The next person, I think there was a similar gap, maybe even more. And the first guest I had, Rebecca Ward, she's from the UK, but she was the youngest, and she was also... So I'm wondering, that's why I found it interesting, because there's quite a common theme already. My first 3 guests on the channel, and you're all the youngest. You're all by quite a margin as well. It's not like you had someone 2 or 3 years older to sort of fight with. You had you had some space in a sense to be a child on your own, even though there were other children, but they were much older.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Yeah,
The sort of what you need at those ages, and with terms of, I guess, nurturing isn't being given to an 8-year-old; it's being given to the baby. So there's no fighting over who's getting parents' attention as much.
sure.
So that's interesting, though. But the only difference is, I guess, that the parental situation, which is interesting. I know my father left when I was born, like 3 months after I was born. Right. So I didn't really have any kind of attachment or memory of him till I was a teenager. And I think this is interesting because the world is multifaceted, and it's really hard to even pinpoint in what a cacophony of what a multiverse we live in, like how different people's lives are according to the very small things that happen.
Yeah.
But I do believe that in the formative years, somewhere between 2 and 8, we are shaped quite largely. I believe a lot of it, we're born with a certain essence of who we are, but those years are quite important. And since we're going to get onto what you do and what keeps you at it and what inspires you,
sure.
I'm curious. That's why I'm asking about these things. So if you think I'm prying too deeply, tell me to fuck off. It's no problem.
No, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Yeah.
So we know basically what you do now.
Okay.
But I guess you've done many things, haven't you? You're not just a one-trick pony.
I have done quite a few things in Finland, including sort of working as a construction worker and these kind of things as well. So like these, there's a whole bunch of different things.
That's not your vocation, is it?
No.
That's just to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Everyone has to do that.
Yeah.
Where's your heart at?
I think working as a writer creatively, that sort of sometimes gives me a spark. That moment where you can sit and you can sort of do something for a long period of time and get lost in what it is that you're doing. That's always exciting. And I also like connecting strings are important, like strings of the writing, so connecting it to history and creating characters that are connected sort of quite deeply and also ethically or spiritually to something else, like I think the human existence is rich and each individual is rich. So I try and strive to create something that's authentic and find authentic voices in even characters that are in English school books, so that they resonate with the students. Like that's what I try and do. Whether I succeed or not, I'm never quite sure. But
you mentioned spirituality at the beginning there. I'm curious: is it that writing's a spiritual practice for you, or that you have like a level of spirituality that you want to share with the world?
I don't know. I wouldn't. I'm not sure whether spirituality is the way forward in the word that I wanted to choose.
But it came up.
It did come up. So I suppose there's a connection, something that is for me, the thing that I'm connected with. And I suppose like one of the things that I really enjoy working with is magical realism. So there's sort of a connection to the imagination, and I suppose with imagination comes the concept of spirituality as well. So, but for me, I suppose it's the artistic process of writing is less practical and more I enjoy going on a journey when I'm writing.
So in essence, that is like there's a spirituality to the craft.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. There's.
And that's what you were kind of. That's what you were sort of aiming at. But do you have any spiritual practices in your life? Other than writing.
I don't.
I guess we'd have to define the terms of what spirituality means, right?
Yeah. I think that it goes quite deep when you're saying, okay, well, what's your spiritual practices?
Or if you don't connect with that, then that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like in a sense, I used to spend a lot of time thinking about these things, and sort of I grew up as going to church, and I was an altar boy in the Protestant church in Canada, and so was well versed with that sort of conventional spirituality. And then when I moved, I started living with my dad. I went to the church a bit less because he wasn't so much into going to the organized religion. And so somewhere along the lines, like I sort of not discovered my own, but went through my own set of rules and ethics and these kind of things. But it's been a while since I've sort of pondered on the subject.
Do you have any like a ritual that you would follow, or do you have any? Are you still connected somehow with the church? That you,
no, not at all.
Okay.
No. In fact, I do think that sometimes organized religion is quite a negative thing in human reactions. I sometimes like, and this goes, I suppose, quite deeply, but I do think sometimes that, one of the greatest things that happened to the human being is they looked around and they said, well, why are we here? And they thought about it. And I think that a lot of creation and creative thought comes from that concept. And I think that some of the worst things is the guy sitting next to them said, I know, So like that, so that's the thing, the sort of, I guess the key point that I'm a little nervous about.
Yeah, I have my reservations about dogmatic kind of theology as well, and religion in general. And I was raised a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Incredibly Christian, you might say, but even though we're not a Christian religion, you are. You have the same Bible. My argument with my mother is always, because she still is.
Yeah, okay.
My argument is that every single one of them believe that they are the one. Now, we're calling the book the same book, Bible. It's got the same stories. It's written the same way. It all comes from the Hebrew, the Old Testament being and the New Testament, and yet they're right and everyone else is wrong. And to me, they can't see. It's like clearly they're being held in this boundary of no, give us your money, not them your money. Reinterpretation of the same story to a different group of people. You got the house. Say for example, this world is a house and there's different rooms, right? Everyone follows the same rules of the house, but because they're in a different room, they call it a different thing. Therefore, everyone else is wrong. Their rules are wrong. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, if you study like a little bit of ancient religions, right? There's a lot of the same stories that appear in the Old Testament, and I sometimes feel like when you read the Old Testament, it's like the best of all the other stories that are around at the time, right? So, the
Golden Bough, that has plenty of old stories in there.
So so they go, well, your religion has blood. Well, we have a flood as well, and we have this, and we have this. Hey, isn't our story
born of a virgin?
Isn't our story? Yeah. So
resurrected after 4.
But also I think that I'm also of like whatever works for you, whatever makes you feel that you can, because I feel like sometimes the human existence is pain and suffering, and it's long and it's full of tragedy. So anything that you can sort of find the beauty in, and if you find the beauty in these stories, if you find meaning in these things, in anything, then I think that there's got to be some benefit to that. So
you have to forgive me for asking, but somehow when you talked in those terms, there was something that seemed to bubble up, pain and tragedy, and I can almost see a vulnerability and a sensitivity in you there. I wonder.
Well, I'm always vulnerable and sensitive.
Yeah, but artists generally are. Like it seems like we're a little bit more open. That's how we're able to feed, to whatever we do to let the creativity flow. But somehow that view on the I wouldn't say negative, because it's not negative. It is what it is. But it seemed to sort of move you a little bit.
Sure. Like I mean, the human existence. Going back on that, like I think for many people, it's we put layers on to protect ourselves, and we protect ourselves from sort of the tragedies and the pains we've suffered. And I think as we're moving forward in this world, and as technology advances, then it becomes easier and easier to close ourselves off from feelings and feeling things. It becomes easier to kind of distract ourselves. But I don't think it goes away. I think it just bubbles underneath.
Have you experienced a lot of pain and tragedy?
Have I experienced a lot of no more than I think anybody else. I wouldn't say my pain and tragedy is any like, I think there's many people who have suffered much more than
But you
I
have suffered. I mean, because some people wouldn't consider their lives as being painful and tragic.
Okay.
Tragic.
All right.
And so it's just, what I'm interested in here is like uncovering.
But I mean, I think there's
the
other side is that, like, that I also find tremendous joy in things as well. So I think I do tend to feel things, whether they be sad or be joyful. It's just, and I can see it reflected in my son as well. He feels things that are sad, and he feels things that are joyful to quite an extreme.
That sounds healthy to me. Yeah. It sounds like you're not limiting your scope of emotion, which is actually like the suppressing emotion is like it's deadly. It's a killer. It can really stifle life. So I'm all open to that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you've had more than your fair share.
I don't.
And not in comparison to anyone else, but it's because I'm interested in the choice of words that you used, like the spirituality before and pain and tragedy.
Yeah.
Because some people would say life is a joyous occasion, and and they would focus on that first. But you didn't. You went the other way, and that's why I'm.
Well, yeah, but in the context of, I think I was using that as a caveat towards a religion. I was using that towards. I don't think I was necessarily mentioning my my upbringing or my experiencing. I think maybe more of a global scale of suffering, but like. Personally, everybody's personal experience, like for instance, your father leaving, leaves a hole, and sort of these childhood experiences are important, and sometimes that we can pack them away and stick them down, where we don't deal with them. But then sometimes through therapy process, it's important to like open them up and kind of explore them. Otherwise, I think it would be nice to live a life that is fully realized and explored. I think that would be one that I would like, although that can sometimes be quite stressful, because I think sometimes happiness comes with ignorance.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like sometimes
what you don't know can't hurt.
Yeah, you're like la 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 la, and I think the more you ponder and you think and you analyze something, the more you're kind of, or even analyzing yourself and your own behavior.
I'm not sure if I agree with that. Alistair, because I think it's all perception. I think you can have a terrible life and perceive it as wonderful, and I think you can have a wonderful life and perceive it as terrible. And I don't think incidents that happen to you make who you are. I think that perception is really important. And I'm a really big kind of having dealt with my own demons and still dealing with, I'm continually trying to improve myself in many ways. One of the reasons I started this podcast and have these conversations was to see if I can, perhaps fill another part of that hole. For want of a better phrase, but do you know what I mean? It's I think perception is a powerful tool.
It's not something that, like, you can look at two sides of a coin very differently. Like, you can look and you can analyze things and you can find kernels of joy that spread around in, like, the whole things. Like, the mind is a powerful thing. So, like, looking at things in a positive light, I try and do that as well. But also then there's not being afraid of looking things and analyzing things in a negative light. Not to corrupt you and turn you into a negative niggy, but to like to try and find some sort of truth. I don't know.
It was the happiness is the ignorance is bliss kind of idea.
Yeah, the ignorance is bliss. But I mean, I do think that sometimes that is, but I mean, it's a different kind of bliss. It's a different kind of bliss. I think there's the true happiness is comes from analyzing existence. Maybe, I don't know. It's because I think that people are wonderful and individuals are wonderful and communication is wonderful. So, like, through analyzing all of these things, I think that you can kind of find joy.
I just had a memory of a film called I Heart Huckabees. Have you ever
I
seen that?
Heart Huckabees? Is it I Heart Huckabees? Okay.
I love Huckabees, but
Yeah.
it was written I Heart Huckabees.
Yeah. I don't really recall the movie.
There was Mark Wahlberg and who's the Dustin Hoffman.
Okay.
And a few others, and it was about this person having an existential crisis in their life, and they go to this therapy and they start asking questions about existence and what it means to be here, and it was kind of like a therapy, but it was very existentialist.
Okay.
And it just somehow that I just got taken back to that movie, and I'm not quite sure why, but perhaps I should revisit it again. Maybe there's something you triggered in me just then from saying that.
Is it a good movie? Or?
Yeah, it was a great movie.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the film. It might have been before Boogie Nights.
Okay.
That really one of the films that Mark Wahlberg went from being a singer to an actor.
Okay.
And everyone knew it because it was a fantastic performance, if I remember rightly. But I was a lot younger then, so.
Yeah, it's funny to revisit things that you experienced when you were younger. I recently, because when I finished East 15, I wrote a play and took it to the Edinburgh Festival, and we did a run at the Edinburgh Festival of it. So so I wrote and directed, and I was sort of producing, and I was acting in it. And it was pretty funny. We all slept. There was, I think, 7 or 8 of us in the cast. I was acting as well and just doing the lights and these kind of things. And we all slept in tents in Scotland in the summer, which is pretty funny because we didn't have sort of a budget to kind of pay for accommodations. But it was nice that everybody was involved.
What year were you at East 15?
From 99 to 2002. Okay. Yeah, so I think this would have been the 2002 Edinburgh Festival. But I remember thinking when I, for a long time about that this was a remarkable piece, and there was something in it. It was in fact called Spiritual Nuggets, which I think adds something to this. Anyway, it was going through again. It's very cringy, it was very not. Well, you shouldn't be, so upset at your previous work, but for me, I was my perception on it of being oh, that was pretty good. It's not, and it would be an interesting thing to go back and.
So, do you think it wasn't good?
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, it's a terrible piece of writing. There are moments that I think are work. There's a couple of characters that work, and one of those, sadly, there's a connection with one of the actors who actually he killed himself a few years after it. So it's got a little bit of a tragedy to the story because we had sort of a wonderful experience there, but he succumbed to his own demons, which is super, super sad. But as far as the play as a piece of art, I'm glad I've moved forward at least so much that I could recognize it.
Are you still writing plays now? And directing?
I sort of am working a little bit on, or I started working on a play, which would be a 2-person play, which is sort of my life story in my life in Finland. That's a kind of a musical with puppets.
Well, if you need a puppeteer, hello. I mean, that opens up quite a mixed bag of questions for me.
Okay.
Right? Because what it is, if...
Can I stop holding this book? Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll put it back on the shelf.
Yeah.
It's a really good...
Okay.
I say good read. It's a little bit...
Yeah. Right.
If you like stories, that's basically a lot of them.
Yeah.
You will see origins in there. My favourite is the story of Persephone, the goddess of the underworld.
Okay.
How she got there. We're talking about playwriting and your life story, two-hander.
With puppets.
With puppets.
Tragicomedy.
There's the tragic again. Tragicomedy. Now, okay, so like you moved on many years, you know, like was the one you did at Age 15 your first show?
Spiritual
Nuggets.
I was an actor back in Canada. I played Tigger in House of Pooh Corner. So like I did that, you know, for like, you know, semi professional as a teenager.
Okay.
And so I had many shows of that. So and then I, you know, eventually I auditioned in England and went to a few different sort of summer schools and then had a choice of a couple of different schools, and I chose East 15.
The writing itself is what
the writing itself. No, well, I suppose I was writing in high school and these kind of things. You know, I would write different
plays.
I wrote like more comedy sketches, I suppose. And
so you were writing sketches even as a teenager.
Sure, yeah. I directed all my friends to do this sort of comedy sketch thing in we had these kind of events where the students would perform different types of things. So some of those were successful and others were awful. But
with that kind of dedication and that kind of length of time to spend on, even if only lightly at first, it does show there's a natural trajectory, right? If writing still continued to be a part of your life, this is a kind of key focus for us.
Yeah.
Well, for you, I guess. But I'm less interested in about that show. I'm just kind of trying to gauge how long you've been writing them to perform, you know.
Okay.
So if, you know, you trained at East 15, it makes sense. You started writing, I'm going to do plays now, for example. Took it to the Edinburgh Festival. That's what all, you know, young actors and performers want to do. So that was like, it feels to me, even if you'd done it as a teenager, that was like a stepping stone.
Sure.
Right? For you saying, I'm going to make my mark. I'm going to put my foot down. Because now, as you're writing two-hander with puppets about your life, with tragicomedy, what was the name of it?
My Finnish Odyssey.
My Finnish Odyssey. Okay, I'm going to write that down so I don't. Odyssey, and it's about your time here. Then obviously, okay. There's a reason that you've called it that. There's a reason it's that style. There's a reason you've given it that name. But why would anybody? Think it's about your life. What is it about your life that you feel would be worth others coming to see?
I think it's pretty funny.
Right. Okay. But tragic.
But I mean, it's like the tragicomedy, you know, mix of those. You know, like the line, you know, with Shakespeare, if you can.
Well, I know, but I'm not sure if anyone listening knows.
Well,
That's why I'm trying to sort of drag a bit more.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well. It's quite easy. Anything tragic can turn comedic, and things that are comedic can turn into tragedy on small little events. You know, a funny story. You know, like. If I can give an example, like when I first came to this country and I was first starting to learn Finnish, I sort of was in a store and I bumped into a little old lady and I said like "Olen pahoilla."
What does that mean?
Which is I'm sorry. So I meant to say I'm sorry, "Olen pahoilla," but I said "Olen paholainen," which is I'm the devil, right?
Okay.
So then this little old lady, she like looks up at me super scared, and I think that she hasn't understood what I'm saying, so I say it louder, like "Olen paholainen," right? I'm sort of chasing her through the store.
Even the voice got more demonic.
You know, "Olen paholainen," you know, and it's only later that I realized. But see, that's sort of an amusing story. There, you laughed, but you know, it could be a tragedy if I said that and then she tripped over and fell and
broke her neck.
Right? You know, then that becomes a deeply tragic story, and I become, you know, the devil, the foreign devil right before this sweet little old lady dies.
Right. Okay.
Right? You know. So the line between comedy and tragedy can be quite.
Yes. You know. It's almost like the the comedy caused the tragedy in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
But yes. So your life as I guess your Finnish Odyssey as a comic tragedy.
Yeah. Where I mean, I'm in the process. This kind of concept came before COVID, and I met with a theater director then, and interested in the project. But then there's lots of things that have come in between, like the books and having a child and all of these things. So I recently in the autumn, because I can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, because it's a lot of books, grade 1 to grade 6, because there's obviously there's the textbook, there's the activity book, and there's the teacher's guide, there's online material, there's writing videos. It's a quite work intensive project. So now we're working on book 6. I feel like sort of sticking my head out of the book land, and I start to revisit some of the things that I was thinking about doing before I started on this particular project.
I noticed when you mentioned the books, you had a big sigh at the beginning of that, and you went, "There's a whole range of books." It sounded like you had to release something to say that.
Well, there's, I think it's I think when you look at me with it, when last time I've checked with the the Finnish publishing book company, where it says how many books that you've published, I think there's 19 or 20 books, which is a lot of material. Even though obviously in each book there's a team of different people that you're dealing with. Each book that you do and each thing that you write, you put a little bit of yourself into it, and it becomes something, and you're sending it. And also these kind of things feel important to me because it's connected with children as well, and children's experience learning English language, and how you would like them to kind of perceive the language, and also dealing with sometimes people's sort of traumas with learning the language, like that they used to have, and also it's difficult.
I feel like you're evading my question.
What was your question?
I guess now you've gone back into the details of what the books are and what they contain. Because they're specifically for grades 1 to 6 or whatever it was.
Yeah, and then
in Finland for English speakers. I don't know how many people listening really are going to get much from that.
Yeah.
But the sigh wasn't because you've done lots of work and written 19 books, been on those teams. The sigh must have come from somewhere else. So I'm wondering, what is the process? Is it a difficult process to write these books? Because obviously this is, if your like dream is more towards the creating stories and plays and screenplays about life, this might, to me, it sounds a bit like this is the day job.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I totally disagree with that, because I think within each,
I'm just
within each book there's stories and characters and things that you create, and in a sense you get to, they get to be shared with a wider audience in sort of a semi-permanent situation with the book. So
you're happy
really
about
nice.
This work?
I am really happy with the work. Yes, it's a collaborative effort, and then sometimes within the collaborative effort, there can be moments of it being a little bit difficult, and also, when you get into the technical side of things, which we probably don't really want to do here, but in the sense of that you're trying to mix vocabulary, grammar, and story all together. So you're trying to create stories with sometimes in the lower grades, a very limited amount of sentences, amount of vocabulary, and you're trying to make them funny and interesting, and also have some
stand
sort
out
of
from other characters,
emotional lines going through, and to create these real characters, but you can only write in the present simple.
Yeah.
These are interesting
are
challenges. Tight. So I suppose the sigh comes that I'm like proud, which is a dangerous word in Finland, but I'm quite happy and proud of the work that we've achieved with the books. And the sigh is also an emotional thing about letting them go at the end, although we still do have 18 months of quite diligent work to go. Diligent. I'm not sure.
You say proud is a dangerous word in Finland.
Well, yeah, I mean the word ylpeä in Finnish, which is pride or be proud of something, has quite negative connotations.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. So like, you know, one of the virtues in Finland is being humble. And humility is like priced as like quite on high. So you wouldn't want to seem as being proud. Like if somebody gives you a compliment in Finland, like even about, oh, I like your hat, then the immediate reaction of a Finnish person is like, no, it's cheap. Buy this hat. You crazy? You know, whereas in English and in England, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. So sometimes there can be a little bit of a cultural misunderstandings.
I wonder what would happen if you said, you're very humble. I bet they feel proud. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sure. Kiitos paljon. It's an interesting concept, right? Because it's superficial, I feel. I think every human feels pride. It's another emotion. I think it should be, like we talked earlier on about having joy and experiencing tragedy and sadness. Pride is another emotion. It's a feeling. To shut
pride
that
in
off
your humility. Sure, yeah.
I mean, just to have pride in anything is, you know, how do we move forward? How do we keep going? It's not. I think pride isn't. I think it's seen as egotistical in that sense, right? I guess that's what they don't like in the culture. They don't like. But this is interesting because
I mean, even when they cheers, like they have that thing that diddly boys, which is like titles away. So I think that within...
I haven't heard that.
You haven't heard that?
No.
Okay, so when they go cheers, they go diddly boys, which they mean titles away. So a doctor and the construction worker can drink together without having any sort of status between the two. So they want to have no titles. As people, as human beings. So I think that comes with the idea of the negative view on pride, and
can you be proud of your children and their achievements?
Sure, yeah, for sure. I think
you become a doctor. You train for many years. You should be proud that you've achieved that.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Why not?
You worked hard
for something and you achieved it. There should be a sense of accomplishment. Otherwise, why would you have bothered in the first place?
Well, yeah. But like this is I think individual. It's quite easy to be proud about somebody else, but I think proud about yourself or the things that you've achieved is sometimes quite difficult. I find it difficult for me.
Proud people. I see it all the time. People and like there's a lot of snobbery here as well, and perhaps it's with the mask of humbleness, but it's not. I feel there's more humbleness in other places and less here because there's a clear divide between. No, there's not a class system here. Monetarily, people are a lot more sort of closer together, you know, what people can earn, and the gender gap is shorter as well here more than anywhere. But there's this pride in that. They've got pride about having sister, which no one else in the world can possibly have because they're not Finnish. So there are a few things in that I feel like it feels contradictory to what my experience has been, and that's only my experience.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's really interesting that you give me that because it opens up a couple of thoughts about arguments I have with my wife about what we agree on, and if I say, come look at my new website, or I feel I've done well at something, and I you know, there's part of enjoying having achieved something is to be recognized for it.
Yeah.
Right? It's to have that recognition. It feels like, okay, I wasn't mad. Yeah. Other people can see that what I've done was worthwhile. Right? So how do you know if anyone's doing good or not? How do you know who to trust and who not to? Because they're not talking about themselves? Well, I mean, it feels counterintuitive, and it feels like it just means only the people who've passed through this door are allowed to have that pride or to show their achievements. If you haven't done it this way or through this strategic method that we've laid out, then you can fuck off. Everyone else, you're just showing off. You know, they don't like the fact that you haven't gone through a certain path to achieve something. And I think that's laid in with that idea of pride. Pride is for other people to feel for you, not for you to feel for yourself. And it's a cultural thing that I find it funky. I find it funky.
Well, I mean,
but it explains a lot.
There's like cross-cultural relationships are always quite a little bit different, and I do think that there is quite a, like, there's sort of the, you know, you have your own culture in your family, and then there's the culture of your city, and then there's the culture of your country, and like all of these things that create you in the way that you communicate. And I think that like there's quite a few like really important differences between cultural understanding of Finnish people and English people as well. And so I think understanding those key points are kind of one of the ways of succeeding in a relationship with somebody of a different culture, and that's globally. And then also like, you know, making yourself happy, but like it's also it's a journey that it's difficult every single day, because in a sense you're fighting your own emotions, right? You have your intellectual head, which you understand the reason why that person is not excited about you going like, I did awesome at that, right? And the Finnish person going like, that's inappropriate thing to say, right? Or you having a negative feeling about like just like, for instance, what Finnish people, and you maybe are aware of this, but our listeners might not be, is Finnish people like they view listening as being polite, so they won't sort of ask you any questions.
No
They'll
interjections.
let you talk, right? Which can feel kind of awkward and make you feel like they don't give a shit about you, right? So you're like, hey, I just got a new job at a theater. I'm directing a play. And then you'll get silence, right? And they're waiting for you to tell as much as you feel comfortable in telling. But for an English person, it feels like that this person doesn't want to talk to me and they don't like me. And then you can jump from they don't like me, well, why don't they like me? They're arrogant, right? So you have this person trying to be, you know, this Finnish person just being respectful and polite as possible, as humble as they could possibly be. But you're viewing that from your perspective. And once you kind of have a little look and you look at that, then you can understand it completely, and you can just waffle on as much as you want about something.
That has been an issue to me in the past. And Monica does better now, but she does remind me from time to time that, Darren, it's just, you know, it's a cultural thing.
There's some cultural differences.
Yeah, where I think people are being rude, but it's almost like when I cross the road, I always wave to the car for stopping, right? And when I'm driving, no one ever waves and says thanks. I'm like, I could have just killed you. You just jumped out of nowhere. You know, how about a little acknowledgement for me not killing you today? I could have been a complete foreigner and not know the rules, and you would have had to. Like in the UK, you wait for the car to stop, because otherwise they'll plough through you, and the people get run over all the time, even at zebra crossings, because the rules are different, and that's a cultural rule, not necessarily a road safety rule.
Right. Yeah.
I think all cars should stop at a crossing. Full stop.
I'm glad you've said that.
Yeah.
That's important.
And that's what I do. I just sometimes. Yeah, but then again, it's like this seeking acknowledgement for those minor things, and I've been letting go of it more and more still. But the only thing I can't let go of is shopping at Lidl's and having my food thrown down the aisle after it's been scanned. And they would crush it with the splitter, the separator.
I really haven't noticed this. I'm sorry, I haven't noticed this.
You haven't noticed this?
No. You're
my shopping gets mauled every week, and I've had to sort of do deep breathing exercises before I go to the till or go to the self-service. It depends what I'm buying. But oh my God, I've had tomatoes fly up in the air, like eggs crushed, and I'm like, excuse me, can you stop doing that to my food, please? If I'm paying for this. And they look at me like, how could you even speak up? How could you? I'm like, well, because you're breaking the food I'm paying for. You know, herbs, for example, they get torn up if they're slashed against a box of
maybe we smash stuff in Canada. I'm not sure, because I haven't.
Cold countries, they just get out.
They just get out of here.
Yeah.
Guys,
seriously, you get arrested in the UK if you were working and did that to someone shopping. You get sacked anyway. But again, cultural differences aside, it's still one of my favourite places in the world to be. They respect nature, and the word respect actually is something. There is that respect, and that's in the culture. It's not said, it's not shown, but it's done in different ways. You know, for them, keeping quiet and allowing you your space to speak is respect. For them not waving at you, that's also a sign of respect, because they're like, I don't want to get in your face. I don't want to bother you. Like this distance is important. I remember during COVID when the 2 meter rule was global. You're not allowed to be closer than 2 meters between people, and the Finnish joke was, what's wrong with the usual 4 meters we keep?
That's a good one,
which I thought was interesting. Even rowing on the lake next to where we are now, in the summer I was, I think, 20 meters or 20 yards from somebody else's laitari, the pier, and the woman going, further. She came out of her house, run through the garden, a good 150 meters, just to tell me that I was too close to her pier. I'm like,
I think I have to say in Canada there's a space thing. Like it wasn't so different, so it could come with colder climates. There could be something that's connected there, like that. This and silence is also there's. I noticed the cultural shock a little bit when I was spending time in England. Would people say hello to each other on the street and whatever? But I do remember I did a little bit of a test. I was feeling like a little bit lonely at one Christmas, and I was out with my dog, and my daughter was small then, and we were going for a walk, and I said it was Christmas Day, and I said, like, Merry Christmas to everybody that I passed in Finland. And this was Turku. I get told, when I tell this story, that this is, I must, because in other places maybe it's different, but nobody said it back. And I didn't say it in English. I said it in Finnish. Yeah. And it wasn't I wasn't saying that I'm the devil or whatever. It wasn't like I was doing something.
I'm old Nick.
I didn't. But one sort of elderly lady said it back to me. Kind of, she was about 10 meters away. Afterwards, she said it back, and so that kind of felt good. But I think I was expecting too much. I'm not sure what I was expecting. Do you know what I mean? But I did feel like I think the year before I had spent it in Hexham, and everybody had said it to everybody when walking down the street. You would just be continually saying Merry Christmas.
I mentioned this in the last podcast that Monica's granddad told me that if someone smiles at you in Finland, they're either crazy, drunk, or stupid. In the street, in public.
I think
it's a phrase.
I think, I think that's changing. I think the younger Finnish people, you get some smiles, but whether that's a good thing or not, like it's different cultures can keep like their own. Cultural identity is kind of important, and it's something that I'm aware of also writing these English books. Is like I would like, and we would like, as part of the series, to sort of give a voice to kind of the English speakers that didn't have a voice as well. And we're working a little bit with some of the Indigenous communities in Canada as well. One of the characters is she's part Indigenous, and so. We're trying to share that story. I remember because we have a sensitivity writer that I found who's a former chief of the Moosonee Cree Nation, and I remember talking to him for the first time. I was quite nervous, because here we are, like a little bit intruding, wanting to share some of his culture stories in these books, because there's kind of a correlation a little bit with some of the stories to like traditional Finnish stories, because it's like sort of a similar climate. They're dealing with things like the Northern Lights, some of the same wildlife, and traditionally some sort of same existence. There's a correlation, so that's why we wanted to kind of include it. So
I've noticed in artwork between North American, Native American. I know you're talking about Canada, but I guess it's similar to Sami. The Sami obviously goes across the top of Russia and Finland and Norway and Denmark and Sweden, and then but when there would have been more ice, people could walk. Might have even walked one winter across over to there, and I think that would have been a pathway. A lot of that artwork, a lot of those, there's a lot of similarities in like the kotas, for example, in the teepees, but How close?
also,
how close
like,
is that to
I
Inuit
can,
and
I can
culture?
say also that like we are humans and we are dealing with the same elements, so it stands to reason like we don't need to all like be like, hey, there doesn't have to be that, you know, we're it's, you know, you put something in the same environment, the same kind of, you know, person, because we are all, although we all are very different, we're also very similar. So we it sort of makes sense that people get to the same conclusions or have different conclusions, but you know, different stories, different, you know.
The journey of humankind is like a logical progression of
Universal, yeah. That, well, I think so, but I don't know. Like, there's lots of experts out there, and I don't know about these things. I wouldn't be able to begin to kind of make connections between all of these different things. But like, that's just my perception. I don't want to be humble about that, but like, I don't know whether, like, in the sense that what people's opinion on these subjects, you know, everybody's opinion is valid, but like, I'm not sure that I feel confident enough or strong enough in that sense that my opinion would be almost, you know, what does it matter, like, you know, that it would be of interest, like this is the kind of thing about that
of that.
I have that.
No, it's just we're just talking, right? It's it's an interesting topic. And also like part of getting to know you is also kind of seeing what kind of conversations I would continue in the pub. Yeah. You know, if we had a pint, and what we could delve down without. This is not an educational podcast by any sense.
Yeah.
It's just a way for me to meet people, and also for maybe others to gain a broader like sense of who's in the world and what's going on. You know, we're not Fortune 500 entrepreneurs. We're regular people, but we are immigrants and we've moved to a certain country. So there's that. You know, we fall into a certain demographic. We're both creatives. We've come from. You know, we've both been to the same acting school. For Christ's sake. So we have things in common, and you know, opinions are fine. Yeah, they're all everything's part opinion, part theory, and until it's proven, and then it's disproven later on. So I wouldn't worry too much.
No, I think it's one that I would like. I feel like, I guess one of the things that I hold dear, it would be to constantly like continually reevaluate things, and this goes with like a lot of. I remember when I was studying directing, and Clive Barker. I don't know whether you know who he is. Not the horror director. It's the guy who wrote Theatre Games. It's a famous book in England, and he was a director at East 15 as well. He sort of he would kind of talk that a director can either be a dictator or a facilitator. So in the sense that you facilitate the performances and the ideas and the lighting designer and all of these things into a vision. So I've taken that beyond kind of directing, and I try and use that philosophy myself, is that like when people give opinions and different ideas, like in a sense, you would want to give those weight as well. I mean, you might disagree with them, obviously.
Just having made two films now, I think it's a luxury to be able to do that. Especially, but in theatre, it makes sense. There's a rehearsal period. You don't have money for a rehearsal period unless you're fucking Martin Scorsese. As an independent, you just got to get, like, and even TV, when people are being paid, there's not enough money. So you turn up knowing your lines, and that's about all you get. You meet the rest of the cast, you meet the crew, and they tell you, stand there, say, no, don't say it like that, say it like this. That's your life. And now I would hate to do that to my actors, especially as an actor and now becoming a director. But what I found is people aren't on the same page because there was no rehearsal process. So I'm the only person that knows the full arc and will be editing it together. So at some points I have to start becoming the dictator, because facilitating, we can't afford it because we've got to have lunch in 20 minutes and we've got to get this scene done. So, and do you see what I mean? So it's a luxury to be able to be a facilitator, even though it's the ideal. It's not necessarily, it's not always possible.
But I sort of meant that as more of a philosophical way of like life, opposed to criticizing your being a dictator.
No. But I feel there is a place for it, and I feel that that's more of a theatre-centric argument.
Yeah, I meant it more of a life argument. Like in a sense, like in life, in the broadest sense. Like I meant not
back to the existential.
I meant it in a broader sense. Like so, taking it from that, because I don't know. I think that both have valid ways, and I think some of the great pieces of art are worked by dictators, and I think also in a sense being a facilitator, like a Mike Lee situation, like you have. You need to have finances and backing and controlled environment and all of these things that as a struggling artist or somebody who's trying to get their vision out there, you just don't have time and facilities to do that. And also you're working with unknowns. You maybe don't know this actor. You don't know this. So you have no idea what they're bringing to it. And you also don't have time and the energy to share your vision. So you're really just using pieces to create something.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I guess that's probably,
but it's
possibly why independent films don't do as well as, finance films, because of the luxuries of time. And what's done with that time and how the money's spent. If I had some financing, first thing I'd do is have the rehearsal period. I would make it like a theatre show. I'd actually have them run through the whole thing, eventually after weeks or months or however.
Well, yeah, so then you can see the journey, but then that's I don't know. You also, like as an actor, you have to bring your toolkit with the full awareness of what you're going to do, and also often the reason why you're hired for a position is not because of your immersive ability. It's because you fit the puzzle that they're trying to do, or you're fitting the product that they're trying to sell, or the character that you have a look or a way or whatever that fits that. So delivering that performance is important. But I also think that sometimes you can always try the opposite, because I think the human condition is quite interesting. That it's like sometimes if they would like if you have something like a line about "I love you," if you perform that with hate, it becomes a lot more interesting and more depth, and also can reveal a lot more and is more truthful than being, than saying it straight, because we as human beings, it's very rarely we say the things we mean, and it's very rare that we mean the things we say.
Very, very rare that we know that either. Yeah. Most of our unconscious patterns and behaviours are driving what we say, but we don't realise it. We know this is what I want. This is what I really want. So, because we have to kind of wrap it up soon, unfortunately, just because of timing. But I'd love to sort of get a little bit on. We didn't talk anything because we obviously worked on another production recently, and Joey's going to come in here next week.
Okay.
And we didn't really speak on his film Delivery Run, which we both were part of, but that's out now for those who are interested in watching action thriller, another independent film from Finland, which is, like my own. He's a young filmmaker who's making his own way, and he's not been relying on other people's financing. But we haven't really got time to talk about that. But I'll just mention it now because he's coming on next week. But what I'm interested in, and what we could do to wrap this up, is with your creative writing, because it seems like this is your number one, path, if you like, or your expertise, and you've been writing for a long time.
Yeah.
So what is it that keeps you consistent? What is it that keeps you passionate and moving forward and actually developing a routine of this? Let's say, for example, people listening might be creators, they might be artists, they might be writers, they might be actors, because I know that since you understand the human condition also, and having trained, having been in the industry, it's not easy. And to find work is one thing, but then to keep yourself moving forward is quite another. And so how do you keep yourself driving that direction where your work and passions kind of continue to meet? Maybe perhaps when you have to do building work or construction just to pay the bills, how do you keep moving forward in the direction you want? As that 10 questions. Think of the last one as the one. It just took me a while to formulate.
it's not a straight, you know, there was a lot of questions there and there isn't that much of a straightforward answer. I would love to give you a good answer. I would love to give you like an answer.
I don't want the right answer. I want,
you know,
your...
that one that could inspire you. But then sometimes when it comes down to it, shame drives. The feeling of inadequacy, the feeling that you are not achieving the things that you should achieve drives you forward. The things that you like, the fear, all of these motivators are the things that like I like creating, but one of the things that can keep you going is it can sometimes be a negative thing, is that I'm not achieving the things that the goals that I have set yourself. And it can be crushing, but it can also be motivating as well. I would like to not have that, you know. I would like to, you know, enjoy the work and feel free and like, and you know, feel passionate about it. And I do feel all of these things, but sometimes the thing that drives is waking up in the morning and feeling that you haven't achieved the thing that you would like to, or you aren't the person that you wanted to be. And because I'm always wanting to strive to be a better person, to be a better writer, you know, like I'm quite active, and it can be crushing when you feel like you're not, when you're disappointed about these things, and things can be tragic and disappointing, and you can be your own worst critic. But the thing that can drive you forward is doing it again, getting better, giving it another go, you know, and not overcoming those things is the driving point.
So you could say that you're driven by the negativity of not achieving who you want to be yet, or where you want to be.
Yeah. But I mean, I that would be my life goal, not to be a brilliant writer or to, you know, like to achieve something. It isn't to that, but it's to find that the calmness and to feel like that I would be happy with just sitting with yourself. That would be the goal. But you and doing writing and stuff can also be further towards that as well. Yeah.
That's really interesting, and that idea of negative drivers is something I hadn't really crossed my mind. But when you said it, I mean, as you explained that, I totally empathized. I was like, okay, yeah, I do kind of do that in some ways as well. But I hadn't just put it into those. Everyone's trying to be positive, but you don't. So you don't focus on the things that are actually happening, and so that is definitely a driver. Because I feel at 48 years old now, oh God, why am I not? You know, why haven't I done all these things? I am doing things, but you know, I haven't had any level of success that awards me some sort of notoriety and immediate financing when I have a new project coming out, or you know, people coming to me all the time. So it's really useful, and it's great to know there's other people out there, and perhaps this is more common than we think. Perhaps there's more people who want this, who don't recognize it. You know, we're living the life of who we are, but we're looking at Facebook and social media and going, oh, that's the life that they're having. Why can't I have that life? And maybe we're diluting ourselves, or becoming delusional about what life really is.
And I'm aware that it's it's not. It's, you know, it's something that I would like to tackle. Like I would, you know, one would want to take, again, this word pride. One would be happy. I could be happy with some of the things that I've achieved. You know, like there are things that I could be happy with, and I could be happy with myself. You know, but there are sometimes things that prevent us from doing that. And I mean, some days it's happy with yourself, some days not. And some days you're motivated by the beauty of existence, and some days you're motivated by your own self-loathing. Humans are interesting.
That's a fantastic way to end. Yeah, I had one more question, but I don't think it's relevant now. I think you kind of answered it without me asking it. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Logan. I think when this podcast warms up a bit and I figure out how to get my cameras working simultaneously without stopping every 28 minutes, then we can do this again, and perhaps even bring a bottle of scotch in or something, and see how it goes then. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in. You're my third guest, and it's still new, so you're helping me work out the format and helping me.
It's been fun.
All right. He said that with such a straight face. Let's not be proud of it. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. As a new podcast, we truly value your feedback. It helps us grow, improve, and connect with the guests that you want to hear from. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the channel and share it with a friend or anyone who might benefit from these discussions. Your support makes a real difference, not only in helping us cover the costs of production, but in allowing this show to reach more people around the world. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can visit our donation page to contribute directly as we continue to expand the channel. Thank you for being part of this journey and for helping keep the flame alive.